Hi, thank you for joining us today to talk about Title V and how it affects TSA workers and TSOs. I'm here with Johnny Jones. He is a 20-year veteran of the TSA, and he's also the Secretary-Treasurer of AFGE Council 100, which represents TSA agents. Thanks for joining us today, Johnny.
You're welcome. It's nice to be here today, and it's really great to be a part of the show, and thanks for having me.
Well, yeah, thanks. I mean, starting off, can you just tell us a little bit about your history working for TSA?
Yeah, sure. I started at TSA back in 2002 after the 9/11 attacks. So I decided it was an opportunity for me to get back to my country. It wasn't realistic for me to go into the armed services. A lot of my friends went into the armed services and went flying across the country. And then when I heard an advertisement, they're creating this agency to protect the airlines. Of course, the day of 9/11 will never go away from my memory. So with that, I decided it's time for me to join up with the agency and try to protect their airways.
Absolutely. And one of the things where you talked about the formation of the TSA right after 9/11, and that kind of ties into the main thing we're going to be talking about today, which is Title V, right? And when TSA was founded, it was founded with a little bit different of an intent than most federal agencies. And in doing so, it also lacks some of the rights that they have, including Title V. So very broad question, but first off, what is Title V?
All right. Well, Title V is basically the rights to this a statute that's given to federal employees. There's several little parts of it. There's the GS pay scale. There's also the Merit System Protection Board. There's also FLRA rights. There's also full collective bargaining rights, which allows you to, kind of have an input in your workplace. So those are the main components of having Title V rights. Plus, you have whistleblower protections and other things, but those are the highlights.
And so you talked about this, a lot of rights on the job, giving you a voice in the workplace. It affects your pay. Why weren't TSA agents, when the agency was formed, why were they not granted Title V rights?
Okay, well, after 9/11 attacks, the agency was like, hey, we don't have a whole bunch of time. The Bush administration was there, and they had, there was a lot of politics behind the scenes. But at the end of the day, they say, hey, we don't have a whole lot of time to deal with unions to set this agency up. So for right now, there's not going to be any collective bargaining rights. The administrator was given full authority to create his own personnel management system. We're also under what they call the pay for performance system. We were the first agency created to use this performance system, and it was an absolute failure. And it's part of the reason why we're fighting today is that section of ATSA that created the agency was a tremendous failure.
Yeah, and one of the things you mentioned was the pay personnel program, right? That they have. Mm-hmm. How is that different? I'm sorry, pay for performance.
Yeah.
How is that different than the pay scale that it sounds like the majority of federal agency workers receive? How does that differ?
Okay, well, under pay for performance, it's basically an arbitrage of your buddy system. It's a buddy system pay system. There's no structure. Under the GS pay system, when you get hired as an employee, it's going to say, hey, your position is a GS 5, 7, or 9. You're going to, over a period of time, you'll go from steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 10. And it typically takes about 18 to 20 years to go from the whole pay system for your position. Under the current pay for performance system, it'll take a TSO anywhere between 30 to 35 years to top out on their pay. So that's one of the biggest problems that we have.
How has that affected the turnover rate at TSA?
Okay, so at the beginning, a lot of us came as TSA. We were all gung-ho. We wanted to save our country. And we knew that the pay would hopefully get fixed down the road. We were saying, hey, every administrator came in and say, we're going to fix this pay. I know you guys are way underpaid compared to your counterparts. And that went on for 20 years. And we're at a place now, the crossroads, where we finally have an administration. We have agency heads, and we also have department heads are all in support of getting this pay corrected.
When you talked a little bit to go back about the collective bargaining rights, so when TSA was first founded, there were no rights whatsoever, right, to collectively bargain. Now that did change, correct?
Yes, in 2011, Administrator Pistol granted us limited collective bargaining rights. They were very rigid. Our first contract was 12 articles. And then right now our current contract is 13 articles. We have and we're only allowed to negotiate very limited in each section. So it's not like the other agencies will have 50 articles. We are governed by TSA management directives. Under most agencies, you wouldn't have these directives. It would be under the CBA, or you'd fall back to OPM guidance.
What are some of the things that you guys can bargain on, and what are some of the things you can't bargain on?
We can bargain on attendance and leave, shift bidding, shift trades, transfers, uniform allowances. We've barely just got the opportunity to have in our contract that you can have a union representative with you before management. That took us 20 years. That's where we're at today. So, in most agencies, all those things are givens.
And so if Title V was to be granted to TSA agents, you guys would then be able to bargain over, like you said, the over 50 things that are normally in CBAs for most federal agency workers.
Correct. Yeah, we would have all these rights and be totally different.
Do you think, does that affect the pay as well, not having this right to bargain?
Well, it definitely impacts your ability to have work-life balance, because in a contract, it'll say, hey, this is how much overtime you're supposed to work, or if whatever, it'll be down to a finite tune. Whereas right now it's still kind of open to management's interpretation, and you have a lot of grievances filed because, hey, one manager says it doesn't mean it was right or wrong. They didn't follow their own policy. So that's part of the problems we have.
Obviously, we talked about pay, we talked about bargaining rights, but overall, what are some of the main issues facing TSOs on the job?
Well, mandatory overtime is a big problem. And, most of the larger airports, everybody's being forced to work mandatory overtime over the holidays, Christmas. Most people are enjoying their time with their families. TSOs are unfortunately being called into work. That's a big, giant problem. And it's a continual problem, as the agency has a 20% turnover rate every year. And in larger airports, it could be much worse than 20%, thereabouts. So number one problem, mandatory overtime. Number two problem, you guys got to get this pay fixed. Otherwise, we're going to continuously lose some of the senior people. Like myself, I've been here 20 years. I'm dedicated, and I'm in for this fight till the end. But like I said, if you want to have a better workforce, you need to create a system for journeyman progression from one place to the next place to the next. If 90% of your workforce is going to be working on checkpoints, you need them to stay in the workforce. Only so many people can promote. So one of the problems that you have to fix is the fact that there's lack of a journeyman position. Like if you're a customs or a border patrol, they're going to say, hey, you're going to be in this position for X amount of years, but you're going to progress to this pay system. So you don't need to look at every promotion opportunity that comes about so you can get a pay increase.
Right. So with this position, to be a little frank, right, if you're going to stay there for all these years and you're not going to get the same kind of raise that your peers would, like you said, in customs and border patrol, there's not much incentive to stay at the position, is there?
No, because when you look at, there's no what I call pay clarity. There is no pay clarity for a TSA officer. So what the agency has tried to do is give more money to the new hires, the newer employees, to kind of give them a little bit more up front, with the hope that, hey, maybe they'll stay with us. And unfortunately, if they don't stay with the agency, they transfer to another agency, and they have done absolutely nothing to address the longevity issue of the TSOs that have been here 20 years. And hopefully this pay equity program that's being put together will address some of that, but they have done zero to address the longevity pay issues for the senior workforce.
You mentioned the pay equity issues that are being looked at. What's happening right now that could affect TSOs?
Okay, yeah. So in the budgets of the House, the Senate, the President's budget request, there's pay, and the administrators supporting giving us full Title V rights. That's Administrator Prokoski. I want to say congratulations on your new appointment, but he also fully supports us having Title V rights and to pay equity. That would, on an average basis, you're looking at a 30 to 40% pay increase for somebody who's been here 20 years. It could be 15, 20% if you've been here a few years, because the pay has been modeled better for those newer employees. But let's just say if you're over 7 years, you're getting a substantial pay increase if you're a TSO frontline worker. And that's one thing that's definitely going to be a difference.
And you mentioned there was, honestly, a baseline 20% turnover rate at some of the major airports, and you said it's higher at some of the other ones. How is that affecting the ability for TSOs to do their jobs, the safety of travelers? I mean, the agency as a whole. I mean, that's a pretty remarkably high turnover rate, and I can't imagine that it makes it easier to get the job done.
Yeah, so if you hire all these people and you bring them in, they get taught our procedures and processes. It's just like with anything, when you unfortunately have that many people that know you're inside security, it's unfortunate, but you could have somebody slip through the nets. And if you get terminated or something, there's no way to know that this guy's not going to go out and talk to somebody, because there's so many people that know your internal processes. So the agencies turn to technology to try to vet people for their risk assessments as well. So there's more than that, but there's definitely the physical security part. There's a lot of people walking away with the agency that know our internal procedures, even though they're said they're not going to sign. There's a non-disclosure agreement, but hey, it's too late once they've already given it away.
Right. So that high turnover rate can even kind of affect the security of what y'all do.
Yeah. So when we're out there reaching out to Congress or senators, it doesn't matter on what side of the aisle. Typically, they see the real threat of us not having pay and having a professional. We are a professional workforce. We work very hard on what we do. We're very dedicated to our jobs, but they want to see us get paid like professionals that we deserve, like our counterparts in the other agencies.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's been probably happening since 2001, right? There's critiques saying that, TSA is just security theater, or that it's a waste of time or resources, things like that. What would you say to that? I mean,
I would say they're absolutely incorrect. There hasn't been a plane that's came down under our watch. We've been here for 20 years. I take great pride in that, knowing that the agency has given us the tools and the education to look and sniff out threats. And to be honest with you, after doing this job for 20 years, you can detect things that other people that just walked in the door cannot. You can see an agile person. You can see a person that maybe, hey, this guy's got a little bit more devious thought in his mind. It's not even a training thing. It's just a gut that comes along with the position. After doing this for a while, you'd be like, hey, this guy's hiding something. Even if you don't see it on the x-ray, or if you don't see it on the person, when you're pulling that person and you're doing their pat down, you might say, hey, I see something here, and say, hey, let's watch this guy a little bit more closely, make sure we check his bag well. You can get these feelings with that education. And also with the time and service, if you're looking at different items on the x-ray, they look totally different at different angles. So hopefully with the new technology, the 3D x-rays, it'll eliminate some of these threats. But I'm able to detect things that new employees cannot, because I've seen so many different ways that this same item looked. If you look at a Swiss Army knife laying straight up, it may look like one way, but I'll be, hey, I know exactly what that is, but it takes a long time for you to be able to identify those things.
Absolutely. So, wisdom that comes with experience on that one.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, little, on a lighter note, do you have any favorite memories of doing this job? I mean, you've been there 20 years. There's a lot of stuff.
Well, there's a few of them. Number one is I had found this earring. This lady had lost it. I was working on the checkpoint, and I ended up finding this earring. It fell out of the bowl, and it got caught in one of those little traps, and I was going through there looking for it, and I said, well, I found it, because she had the other one on. One of them was in the bowl, the other one fell off, and I said, oh, this is exactly what it was. And then when I gave it to her, she ran up to me and gave me a big giant kiss, and kissing all over me, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I wasn't trying to do, I promise it wasn't, but and my manager was watching. She just started laughing. She goes, well, there's nothing you can do about it, so, but that was actually because that passenger understood the importance of our job and security. She had these big, nice earrings that were like a family heirloom or something, but they are setting off the metal detector. She knew she had to take them off. But she was so happy that we found it. And it wasn't like, hey, it wasn't a bad experience. It's nice to know that the passengers understand the importance of our job and what we really do care. We don't do this job so we can get a paycheck. We care about making sure that people can go on a plane. If my son is flying somewhere, or one of my family members is flying somewhere, I want to know that they're getting there safe. That's what I care about the most.
Absolutely. Moving forward, talking about achieving Title V rights for TSA agents and TSOs and the pay scale and things like that. What can the average person, either if they're supportive, in this fight for Title V, or TSOs themselves, what would you suggest that they do to get involved?
Oh, well, the first thing you do is just simply call their congressman and say, hey, support H.R. 903. It's already passed the House. And there's a Senate Bill 1856 that we're still fighting on, but just reaching out to your congressman and say, hey, give these the TSA workforce the pay it deserves. We have worked very hard for the American public. We have given up a lot of our lives. I've given 20 years of my life to this service. I could be making a lot more money in another agency, but I decided to stay with TSA to make sure that this job is done. I don't ever finish anything, and I will not leave this fight until this fight is finished. It doesn't matter how much money I lose, because money doesn't matter. It's about fixing the problem. Don't pass it. Don't kick the problem down the road. I hate kicking cans down the road for somebody else to fix. And we're finally about to get this fixed. And I'm so happy to be a part of fixing this pay inequity for TSOs. It's pay inequity. And there's just one other thing. As a TSO, I've been here for 20 years, and I'm underpaid in my counterparts directly at about almost 25 to 30,000 a year. That's how much the difference is between me working as a TSO or me in almost any other federal position with this amount of time in service.
All right. Well, thank you, Johnny. We're going to put up the AFGE Council 100 website, as well as our social media. You can find out a little bit more about Title V and how to get involved and help pass HR 903 as well. Just once again, thanks to Johnny Jones for joining us. Thanks again, man.
All right, you're welcome. See you anytime. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, man.